Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 19 January 2018. Now, let us begin. Now, we begin from page 1. Now, from page 1, we would be analyzing two news. The first news would be of the upcoming elections in the northeastern states. So, in this article, we would first understand as to what is Article 324, what is VVPAT, and the EVM machines. And we would analyze these 3 points based on the prelims perspective. And the second news we would be analyzing from page 1 is on the recent Supreme Court order. And this news would continue on page 11 and also has a reference point in the editorial page. Now let us first understand about Article 324. Now the article is in the news because the Chief Election Commissioner has announced the dates for the upcoming state legislative elections for the state of Tripura, Meghalaya, and Nagaland. Moreover, the Chief Election Commissioner has said that Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail or VVPAT would be used along with EVM machines. Now, based on this article, if I were to ask you a question as to which article of the Constitution forms the Election Commission, obviously the answer would be Article 324. Now, let us understand more about this article from a prelims perspective. Now, Article 324 states that the superintendent's direction and control of the elections to be vested in an election commission. Now, according to Article 324, Part 1, the superintendent's direction and control of the preparation of the electoral rolls shall also be done by the Election Commission. Moreover, the conduct of all elections to Parliament and to the legislature of every state shall also be done by the Election Commission. Therefore, the election of MPs and of MLAs shall be done by the Election Commission. And finally, the elections to the offices of the President and the Vice President is also done by the Election Commission. So if a question is asked in your prelims examination that the Election Commission of India conducts election for which of the following offices, and the options are President, Vice President, and Governor, you would know the correct option is of President and Vice President, since the Governor is appointed by the President of India. So hopefully up to here, you've understood as to why this article is in the news. Under which article is the Election Commission created, who prepares the electoral rolls, and who conducts the elections to the Parliament, Legislature, President, and of Vice President. Now let us understand as to what is the VVPAT. Now VVPAT is a printer-like apparatus as shown here in this image, and it is linked to the electronic voting machine or to the EVM as also shown in this image. So when a vote is casted in the EVM machine, a receipt is generated which shows the serial number, name, and symbol of the candidate for whom the vote was casted. Now this receipt forms a second line of verification and therefore becomes a method to know with certainty that the vote casted has gone to the desired candidate. Now hopefully up till here you have understood as to what is VVPAT, what does it do, and why is it important. Now apart from this, you should also know that in 2013, the Conduct of Election Rules 1961 was amended to facilitate the introduction of VVPAT. And therefore, in the same year, VVPAT with EVM was first used in the Nobson Assembly seat in the Tuansang district, Nagaland. And also in the same year, in the Subramaniam Swamy versus Election Commission of India case, the Supreme Court directed the Election Commission of India to use VVPAT with EVM machines. Now hopefully up till here, you have understood as to how VVPAT was first introduced, where it was first used, and what was the view of the Supreme Court on VVPAT. Now we move on to our next article. Now on the news on the Supreme Court stays ban on screening of Padmavat, what we would do is first analyze what has been the decision of the Supreme Court. Moreover, we would understand as to what is the link between right to freedom and expression under Article 19 with regards to film screening and prohibition, and then get a brief understanding on the CBFC Act of 1952. Now let us understand what has been the decision of the Supreme Court. Now recently the movie Padmavat was cleared by the Central Board of Film Certification, but despite this clearance, multiple states banned the screening of the movie, and therefore the makers of the movie approached the Supreme Court and asked for removal of the ban. Now the Supreme Court, in its order, removed the ban on the movie and said that the grant of certificate by the Central Board of Film Certification under the Cinematograph Act of 1952 is a legal process. Moreover, the Supreme Court also said that the Cinematograph Act is a central legislation made by Parliament, and this act has empowered the CBFC to certify movies. So therefore, it is a legal process. So after CBFC has granted a certificate to a film, states does not have power to exercise prohibition on a film. So if CBFC has given a film certificate for screening, then states do not have the power to ban that film. So therefore, banning of any movie that has been certified by the Central Board of Film Certification by any state is contrary to law. So hopefully you have understood why is this in the news, what has been the view and orders of the Supreme Court. Now the issue of Padmavat and the prohibition on film has been in depth covered in the December edition of the Focus magazine. So let us use that article itself to understand the role of Article 19, which is freedom of speech and expression with regard to film screening and prohibition, and also get a brief understanding of the CBFC Act 1952. Now, the issue of Padmavathi and the controversy with respect to movies and fundamental rights was covered in the December edition of the Focus magazine. Now, Article 19, Part 1, Part A provides for the freedom of speech and expression, and this freedom provides for the expression of creativity, such as films. And as you may know, fundamental rights have reasonable restrictions, so this expression of creativity is not absolute. So now under these reasonable restrictions, so states can impose certain restrictions on the screening of films. But to restrict, the reason given by the government has to be reasonable. However, whether a restriction is reasonable or not can be determined by the courts and is therefore open to judicial review. And if the state government gives a reason for restriction as being threats, intimidation, or basically law and order problem, but as seen in the recent Padmavat case, restricting a movie because it might cause law and order problem is not a reasonable restriction. So hopefully up till here, you have understood on how films are part of Article 19 Part 1A. You also further understand on how the process of reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights work. And you also understand as to what is not a reasonable restriction to ban a movie. Now this issue of focus further covers the cases that cover such problems, also explains the film certification process in India, what is CBFC, and the various committees that have suggested reforms in the process of certification and regulation of movies. And moreover, it also states on how online films are certified in India. So to understand this in depth, you can refer to the December edition of the Focus magazine. Now we move on to our next article. Now we have taken this news from page 7. Now let us understand the features of the Agni V Missile from your mains and your prelims perspective. Now as some of you may know, a question was asked in your 2014 prelims examination with regards to the feature of the Agni IV missile. So let us understand the features of the Agni V missile that can be asked in your prelims or in your mains examination. Now let us understand the first feature. Now the first feature of the Agni V missile that it is a surface-to-surface intercontinental ballistic missile. Now let us understand as to what is a ballistic missile. Now ballistic missile is a missile with an arcing trajectory. Now what do we mean by arcing trajectory? Now suppose the missile is located here and the target is located here. Now a ballistic missile would follow this kind of trajectory, and this is known as the arcing trajectory. Now moreover, you can also understand how the trajectory of the ballistic missile is different from a cruise missile. Now assume that this is the terrain between the missile and its target. So a cruise missile would follow this kind of trajectory, wherein it is closer to the surface, while the ballistic missile would reach the outermost area of the atmosphere and then fall with the help of gravity on its target. So a ballistic missile is initially powered and guided and then falls with the aid of gravity on its target. So hopefully up till here you've understood the first feature of the Agni V missile. You've also understood as to what is a ballistic missile, what is the arcing trajectory, how is the trajectory of the ballistic missile different from that of a cruise missile. So now let us understand the second feature of the Agni V missile. Now the second feature of the Agni V missile is that it can be used as a canister on a road mobile launcher. Now let us understand as to what does this mean. Now the recent test of the Agni V missile was based on deliverable configuration. Now the recent test of the Agni V missile was based on a sealed canister, as you can see in this image, and can be used through a road mobile launcher and can be quickly assembled during an emergency, thereby making it a deliverable configuration. So hopefully up till here you have understood as to what is the deliverable configuration And you also have a pictorial understanding as to what is meant by the canister on a road mobile launcher. Now let us understand its third feature. While the first one is the inertial navigation system and the second is the micro navigation system. Now this inertial navigation system is based on the highly accurate ring-based gyroscope, and both of these systems together allows the Agni V missile to reach its target point within a few meters of accuracy. Now let us understand its next feature. Now the Agni V is based on a three-stage propulsion system. Now propulsion system is that system which provides the thrust for the missile to take off. Now the payload of the Agni V missile is roughly of 1 ton, and 1 ton is equal to 1000 kg. Now the Agni V missile uses a three-stage engine which is based on solid fuel, and the range of the Agni V missile is more than 5000 kilometers. Now if you look at this image with the red dotted line, it shows the range of the Agni V missile. Now the Agni V missile covers the whole area of China. Now hopefully up till here you've understood how many stages of the propulsion system does Agni V have, what is its payload, how many stages does its engine have, what fuel does it use, and what is the range of the Agni V missile. So if a question is asked in your prelims examination with regard to the Agni V missile, you would be able to answer. Now we move on to our next article. Now we have taken this news from page 7. Now what this article talks about is the new disaster warning system called EWDS in Odisha. Now first let us understand where it is placed in the UPSC syllabus. Now disaster management is part of your GS paper 3 and focuses on disaster and disaster management. Now let us understand what is the EWDS system. Now EWDS would be the first of its kind system that would be located in the state of Odisha. Now the objective of this system is to form a communication system, and this communication system would be used to give disaster warnings. Now these disaster warnings would be of cyclone, tsunami, or any other form of disaster in the state of Odisha. Now these warnings would be given to the general public. Now the EWDS system is being formed under the National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project. Now hopefully up till here you have understood as to the location of the EWDS system, what is the objective of this system, and under which project it is being formed. So if ever a question is asked in your prelims examination with regards to the features of the EWDS system, you would be able to answer. Now let us further understand about this communication system. Now under this communication system, there would be loud sirens from towers at the coast of Odisha. Now the second communication system would be satellite-based mobile data voice terminals, or SBMDVT. Now what this system would do would give mass voice calls to individuals residing in areas which might be affected by disaster. Now the third feature would be digital mobile radios, which would give out radio broadcasts of warnings of disaster in affected areas. The fourth and the last feature would be mass messaging system. And under this system, SMSs of mass scale would be sent to those individuals who might be residing where a disaster might strike. Now hopefully up till here you have understood the four communication systems that the EWDS system intends to use. So if a question is asked in your prelims examination, such as which of the following states have implemented the EWDS system, you would know the correct answer is Odisha. And similarly, in the 2017 GS paper 3, wherein a question was asked, describe the mechanisms for preparedness to reduce the risk during such events, the events being the tsunami. Now if a similar question comes in your GS paper where the word tsunami is replaced by the word cyclone, you would be able to answer with the points given in this video. Now let's move on to our next article. Now from the editorial page, we will not be analyzing the lead article. Now what this article talks about is important for those who are preparing for the political science optional paper, but not for those who are preparing for the GS paper. So therefore, we will not be analyzing this article. What we would be analyzing would be the article below it towards solar powered agriculture. Now let us analyze this article. Now according to the author, India is implementing various schemes to promote the use of solar power. And one of the important use highlighted recently is the use of solar pumps in irrigation. Now several states have adopted solar pumps for irrigation, such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, among others. Now let us first understand from your mains perspective as to what are the current problems being addressed by the use of solar pumps. Now the first problem in agriculture is that 50% of agricultural area It means that these areas do not have a permanent solution for irrigation, and the farmers who own these lands are dependent on the rains to irrigate their fields. Now, the current irrigation pumps being used are diesel powered and therefore cause a lot of pollution. Now, the third problem is that the electricity supply to agricultural lands across India is erratic in nature. Now, according to the author, these problems can be solved with the use of solar pumps. Now, let us understand how is this possible. Now, according to the author, by using solar pumps can allow farmers not to be dependent on rains. Now, these solar pumps would also be cost effective since the farmers would not have to spend on the purchase and logistics of diesel. Now, the second point that the author makes on how this would be implemented. Now, the first solution towards implementation that the author gives is solarization of feeders. Now, what the author means by this is that electricity is being supplied to the industrial area and to agricultural areas at the same cost and at the same rate of supply. And what the author wants is the separation of the feeders. Now, separation of feeders for the agricultural sector is also one of the objectives of the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Jyoti Yojana. So, by separation of feeders, the agricultural sector can get electricity at a lower rate and at the rate of supply that they desire. And also, by these feeder routes, any excessive electricity that have been produced by the solar pumps can be sent back to the electricity grid. Now, the third point which the author makes is that the government should encourage the use of farmer extension programs or community projects wherein multiple marginal farmers jointly implement and use solar pumps. Now, hopefully, up till here, you have understood the current problems which the author highlights and how solar pumps can provide a solution to these problems. Now, let us understand what are the advantages of using these solar pumps. Now, the first advantage that the author highlights is that it would boost India's national target of 100 gigawatt installed solar power capacity. And the second advantage that this would have is that it would increase the farm output and thereby achieving the government objective of doubling farmers' income. Now, hopefully, you have also understood the two advantages that the author has highlighted. Now, different types of irrigation and irrigation system storage is part of your GS paper 3, and solar powered hand pumps can be asked within the purview of this. Now, with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's paper. Now, if you want to connect with me and with other members of the Rouse Focus team, you can join the Rouse Focus Facebook group, whose link is given in the description below. Now, we move on to the question for today.